Jared, all good? All right. You all ready? Okay. Well, we'll bring this meeting to order. Good to see y'all. Welcome to this month's Human Rights Commission meeting. So we'll start off with our land acknowledgement. Since time immemorial, the Kalapuya people have been the indigenous stewards of our region, building dynamic communities, maintaining balance with wildlife, and enacting sustainable land practices. A land acknowledgement is a way of resisting the erasure of indigenous histories and to honor Native communities by inviting truth and reconciliation. Following treaties between 1851 and 1855, Kalapuya people were dispossessed of their indigenous homeland by the United States government and forcibly removed to the Coast Reservation in Western Oregon. As we consider the impacts of colonization, we also acknowledge the strength and resiliency of displaced indigenous people. The city of Eugene is built within the traditional homelands known as Kalapuya Lihi. Kalapuya descendants are citizens of the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde Community of Oregon and the Confederated Tribes of Siletz Indians of Oregon. They can continue to make contributions in our communities here and across the lands. We express our respect for the inherent political sovereignty of all federally recognized tribal nations and indigenous people who live in the state of Oregon and across the nation. Thank you. So our first item on the agenda is to move to review the previous minutes. Have we had an opportunity to review those minutes? And do we have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Okay, let's second it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Okay, so moved. Our second point of order would be looking at this evening's agenda. Does anyone have anything, any amendments to this agenda or anything that didn't make it on this evening's agenda? Okay, if not, we will proceed with the agenda as is. So our first item is our HRC and commissioner updates, HRC leadership and commissioner updates. So again, this is just a space for anyone to share about any human rights activities, updates from the commission's leadership team, anything that you all participated in over the past month. And then if we have any liaisons that want to provide a report on their engagement in other boards and commissions, or liaison reports, you're welcome to do so as well.
No hands online.
Okay. So I can kick us off with a couple of pieces of information. We're going to be reviewing a few items throughout this evening's agenda, but I can just highlight a few. So we are going to be discussing emerging human rights issues, and part of that we'll be discussing the major protests that happened in Eugene. I don't know if folks were able to attend that or observe that, but there were quite a few indications and discussions about human rights issues throughout the United States that were brought up at that protest. So just wanted to hold space for folks to acknowledge that and know that we're going to be discussing some of that in that section of this evening's meeting. We do have a couple pieces that we'll be talking about our HRC awards. So for folks that aren't aware, we do an annual award for human rights leadership in the community. We'll have the nominations open over the next month and be talking about individual recipients and then organizational recipient for that award. We're going to talk a little bit about when we're delivering it, but if anyone here has folks that they'd like to nominate, it's for folks outside of the commission, organizations in the community. So if there's anyone that you're interested in, you can access that. I believe there's a hyperlink on the website, so you can nominate from there, but there will also be something sent out by Office of Equity and Community Engagement staff. We also have a couple new members of the commission who will be joining us. starting their terms in the fall, so folks were able to tune into the city council meeting. They were present and a part of that confirmation process occurred. So we will be seeing a couple new faces this summer joining the commission. And we did have one resignation from the Human Rights Commission. Do you want to share, or would you like me to share? You have most of the correspondence.
I can share. So
Okay.
we received communication today from Commissioner Alair Fajardo. She is sad to say that she cannot continue serving on the commission for personal reasons. And you are welcome to reach out to her. But she was sad that she had to step back from for her commitment to the commission.
Yeah, so if anyone wants to reach out to her, we will miss her on the commission. So with that, there will be another open seat that we'll be looking to fill. And so if anyone does have someone that was interested, we'll talk about that process of filling that. That'll likely happen in the fall. Typically.
Council is still going through the process of selecting.
Oh, okay.
So it is possible that
We might
they
fill
can
that.
use the current applicant pool and select someone from there to fill
Okay.
the seat.
Okay,
So we just got a notification this afternoon, so I have not had time to check with the council staff. But that has happened in the past, and because the appointment process is still open, they may select someone from the current applicant pool.
so just reach out, to Alair and yeah, give her our best, and then know that we will be having folks come in and assume any of those vacancies that occur. Let's see. There are other things, there's so many things in the world. Commissioner Bradley, do you want to share that you had submitted your application, a little bit about that? Can be brief, just so folks know.
Sure, I submitted my application to be the liaison for the police commission.
Yeah,
Very good.
so we'll be discussing that briefly this evening and making sure that we get HRC approval for Commissioner Bradley to hold that seat. And then the police commission is excited for us to have a new member join their body. So we'll likely have someone from the police commission come and share a little bit about their work as they're in a work planning process in the near future. So we all have an awareness of what that post looks like and what their body is going to be working on over the next 2 years. So that's something that if you have any questions, should prepare for next meeting or the following. So that if we do have any questions about what the police commission does, that we can ask those questions, and we're excited for you to assume that position. Outside of that, those are a majority of my announcements that are already outlined on the agenda.
And you were on a panel for that film.
Oh, yes.
Unhoused elders.
Yeah.
Yes.
Those are some human rights activities,
That's
yeah.
right, yeah.
Yeah, I had an opportunity to speak at a panel discussion with a couple community leaders on aging populations of unhoused individuals. And there's a film, No Place to Grow Old, that really highlights a narrative about individuals who are unhoused and aging, and what types of access to different housing resources and social service programs they have, but then also just kind of some really deep dives into the narratives and lives of individuals who are unhoused in the process of aging and what that feels like. I really recommend that film, and I know Commissioner Poindexter and Commissioner Lowe were also present. So yeah, do you have any takeaways from that panel you'd like to share with folks?
It's very disturbing to know that the highest rate of unhoused folks, the highest growth rate, is in elders. And this film was just highlighting a few, but it was really terrible to hear that statistic.
Yeah,
And no real solutions yet.
yeah. And unfortunately, I think within the context of the current moment, we have a nation that's backsliding in the
Mhm.
resources and supports that they're willing to provide for individuals who might need access to social support programs serving elderly populations. And so, you know, what did come up at that panel, which was there were some questions about what we can do at a local level, and you know, what is this kind of cyclic nature of episodes of homelessness look like in our current context and our local context, and the topic of, you know, folks experiencing clearance and folks losing resources and having housing scarcity in our own community. Most of the subjects of the film were in Multnomah County, so it's a very similar context to what, you know, we are in here in Lane County. And you know, I think that looking at that film and what those folks were saying they're accessing, utilizing, knowing that there have been topics about cuts to Social Security and Medicaid and social welfare programs that are sometimes the only catalyst for someone to get into stable housing. And I think that there's, you know, there's a lot of gaps in public awareness as to how dependent many people are as they are at an age where they don't have a pension or a retirement account, or, you know, haven't paid off a home, realizing that a lot of folks just do have dependencies on SSDI and SSI and or affordable housing, because fixed income that they lined up post-employment no longer, you know, pays the bills. And I think that's something that there's a lot of people that don't know that narrative. And I think that it was highlighted. There was a individual from AARP that spoke that I thought really did a good job at highlighting some of that. And yeah, it's, yeah, I appreciate you being there too.
Thank you.
Well, any other human rights activities, things we did in the community? Do you all know it's Dance Week?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a really fabulous opportunity to see some local culture and programming. Recommend everyone go out and see it. I love going to Dance Week. There's so many different dance is just a beautiful art form. So maybe next month someone can tell me about that awesome dance party we went to. So okay, well, if we don't have any further announcements, we can transition into our EPD liaison report with Lieutenant Williams. Are we ready to do so?
Good evening,
Okay.
everybody. Thank you. I only have a couple of cases to bring to you today. The first one is one actually that we discussed last month, but I had an update I wanted to give you. So this is related to a citizen that contacted, saw a person in front of their house near Skinner's Butte. Observed them on their Ring camera trying to get into the mailbox at the house with no right to do so. The resident came out, confronted the person. She yelled some pejorative, some anti-Black statements that were pretty grotesque before walking off. And you may remember I mentioned to the commission last month that we're working on tuning in our online reporting, because there's not a good way of having a two-way conversation with somebody bringing a complaint like this to the police when they essentially leave us an email. It's a little bit more formal than that, but it's a one-way conversation. So in this case, Sergeant Dorman was able to assign this to Detective Dean Peterson, who was able to get in touch with the victim. I think there was one more piece I might not have mentioned. This person left with mail. They stole mail out of the mailbox. So Detective Peterson was able to make a case. He happened. So this occurred on the 10th. Well, it got reported on the 10th of March. He was able to follow up on another disorderly subject call that he kind of thought seemed suspiciously similar. 9 days or 7 days later, 1 week later, at a nearby apartment complex. And he actually went out there and found the suspect to be, to closely match the subject in the videos. He felt confident enough that he was able to make an identification. He tried to make an interview with this lady, and she was just offensive and continuing a diatribe that was filled with racist rants. But she was also kind of incapable of sticking to a clear thought or statement, and was kind of struggling to communicate in a way that made any sense. He was able to facilitate an arrest of her on some warrants and added charges related to the report that he was investigating. So this lady was lodged at the Lane County Jail. The second case, and then I'd like to come back to this one. The second case I also mentioned to the commission last month, I believe. This was and if I didn't, then I'll try to be thorough. Since we only have two cases, this guy was sitting in a parking lot at kind of the First and Jefferson area in a market parking lot there. It was noon. He's sitting in his car minding his own business. This is at the end of March. And this guy walked up to him, began shouting things like, "You don't belong here. I know where you work. I'll follow you." I believe he was a clerk at the market. I'm trying to just summarize here, but this guy made him feel really uncomfortable, was very aggressive and rude and kind of threatening. Ended up pouring his drink all over this guy's car. He thinks maybe it was coffee. Our victim was able to provide, this was a regular police report that went to patrol. So they were able to collect video of the incident, of the guy, the suspect, and kind of the distinctive van that he was driving. Detective Peterson is the hero of this story again. He happened to be that it was assigned to Detective Newell due to the bias component, but Detective Peterson was driving downtown sometime later. It wasn't long ago, actually. I believe it was last week, and recognized the van, and then recognized the driver as being consistent with this case that Detective Newell was investigating. The guy had kind of a surfer appearance, older fellow, but surfer look, long blonde hair. He brought that info back to Detective Newell, who was able to do all the research with the registration on the license plate, identified the owner of the van, and was able to make an identification that matched the video from the market. Detective Newell was able to go interview him. He did admit to participating in the event, but claimed that he didn't say anything mean and he didn't pour anything on this guy's car, which was a provable lie. And Detective Newell was able to lodge him at the jail as well. So those are our two cases. I'm happy to be able to share with you guys some kind of, I guess maybe like some conclusions. We don't always see conclusions on these cases, and it can be a little bit frustrating probably for the victims and certainly for law enforcement and by extension, the commission as well. There was one other piece to that. So Detective Newell, when he identified that guy, he put an attempt, what we call an ATL, an attempt to locate out for him. And then one of our officers, Officer Justin Peckles, who's a pretty hardworking guy, located him, I believe in one of our parks. And that was kind of how we were able to close that case. I guess before I kind of conclude, I wanted to say something, but before I conclude, does anybody have any questions about either of those two cases? Okay. I wanted to take a minute and kind of speak from the heart a little bit. So I read this report about the mail theft case, and the address didn't mean anything to me at the time, but Sergeant Dorman pointed out that it was the Mims house, and I didn't have any idea of what the Mims house was, so I did some research, and it kind of dovetailed into classes that Fabio has taught us about some of the unfortunate darker history in Eugene, and I learned that the NAACP has their office there, I believe, currently. So I just wanted to thank you all for allowing me the opportunity to participate in this little project, and I just feel humbled and grateful to be working with all of you, and hopefully we can make Eugene a safer and more welcoming place to live. That's all I got.
Commissioner Booker?
Thank you for the report, Lieutenant Williams, and your heartfelt statement too. I think everything happens the way it's meant to be. And I think it was meant for you to kind of go down that rabbit hole of discovering the Mims house. And there's a phenomenal history about the 5 Black families that's connected to that house. The house was actually purchased by a Jewish man and given to the Mims family because Black people couldn't own homes within the Eugene city limits. But thank you for sharing that heartfelt message, and I look forward to working with you continuously and hoping Eugene continues to improve. But I love the fact that you were able to discover that and share that with us as well. And I hope more people will take the same steps that you've taken to kind of learn more about all of our residents and cultures and communities around Eugene. So thank you, Lieutenant Williams, for sharing.
Commissioner Booker?
Yeah, thank you.
Lieutenant Williams?
Before we go, does anybody have any questions of the cases I presented or anything else?
I wanted to echo the sentiments of Commissioner Booker and the support in that case and the acknowledgement of the very complex and troubling history that Eugene has with racism. And I think really highlighting the work of our body and recognizing that it's a deeply pervasive issue impacting many, many Eugenians, and often circumstances of that nature can be a catalyst for us to understanding the significance of different households or places being targeted, and raising that awareness and continuing to share that history is very important. So I appreciate you also sharing that you were in your discovery phase and that this work brought you into that, because understanding history is a component of understanding current context for human rights issues that are occurring. And there are so many people in the city of Eugene and different places throughout the nation that don't have that deep dive of where they live and might not understand the role and dynamic of different cultural issues and dynamics that have persisted. And I think it can provide a lot of context to some of the deeper and more traumatic responses that victims of hate crimes may have as a result of certain offenses and certain things that are said or ways that things are processed or reviewed. And so I just really appreciate you sharing that and being an avid learner and sharing with us part of that learning process. Yeah, so thank you.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. Thank you for your time, Dr. Booker. Thank you for your statement as well. And I'll see you all next month if I don't hear from you sooner. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Carol,
Lieutenant
That might be me, sorry.
That's okay. Okay, so our next section on our agenda is our hate bias report. So Fabio, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and I'll try to present everything in a very summarized way, but I do want to hold space for your questions. Before I share the data for the past year, I just want to mention that it may feel contrary to what many people are experiencing right now, especially the immigrant community and the transgender community. So we want to acknowledge that because we're going to present data that may dismiss what people are experiencing. And we heard from Lieutenant Williams about the case involving an immigrant who was targeted just by being in Eugene.
Mhm.
And many of us in the commission or city staff also have families or are ourselves in that category. So many people are feeling affected right now. Let me share my screen so everyone can see the data and we can also have that on the record. So I apologize for the way in which I'm going to present this report because I got the data this morning. So I had a few hours to get it ready for the meeting between trainings and other commitments. But here is a summary of what happened with reports from Eugene in the previous year. So first, let's just look through a comparison between all reports presented to the Oregon DOJ bias hotline. So in 2024, we got 202 reports, which is a decrease, 41% decrease when you compare to 2023. If you look just at hate speech incidents, the opposite happened. We had a decrease in the number of cases reported to the state and an increase in the number of cases reported by City of Eugene staff. Those reports from Eugene are mostly from the Eugene Public Library.
Oh.
So we adopt a new way of reporting those cases in 2023. So that report, that increase that we see here in 2024 may just be a factor of staff getting more familiar with the reporting system and getting that data to us. But we can say there is a slightly decrease in number of cases overall for the entire state. The report by Oregon DOJ is not yet finalized, so they'll be presenting their own report soon. Here's just the raw data that I got for them, so I could prepare a summary for our own consumption and discussion here. The second set of data is about hate crimes. So we have hate crimes reported to the Oregon DOJ. Again, a decrease of 18% from 82 to 67 cases. In Eugene, we saw an increase, a small increase of 11%. We went from 27 in 2023 to 30 cases in 2024. It is possible that many of the cases in the Eugene report are also in the DOJ report, because people may report to both agencies. The Oregon DOJ does not investigate, so they take the word of the people reporting as valid and true, and staff believe there were criminal characteristics in those reports, but they have not been investigated. With Eugene Police, all those 30 cases are cases that were investigated, and the investigation determined that it was a hate crime. So Eugene Police does receive a lot more reports every year, but many of those cases are non-criminal. So they are referred back to the other set of data when we have the bias incidents. In the Oregon DOJ data set, we also have cases that they probably would be found to be criminal, but people did not want to report to police. So for many different reasons, they only want to report to the civilian staff, and that data is interpreted as being a hate crime, but it has not been investigated. So that data doesn't make its way to the FBI database, for example, because those are only reports from law enforcement. Now, I also prepared a table with the incidents by groups. So here I'm going to present just the hate incidents first, not the crimes. And for the hate incidents, you can see how it changed between 2023 and 2024. So some like notable change, for example, with the Asian community, we went from 16 in 2023 to 3 cases last year. And if you remember from previous conversations and incidents here in Eugene, we have several cases involving the Asian community. Those were mostly criminal. So especially those with the burglaries and Asian residents' homes, those were criminal. So we had the exact same numbers of hate crimes affecting that community in 2023 and 2027, with 7 cases in each year. For the Black and African American community, a very significant decrease from 102 to 14 cases in the database. Part of that decrease can be attributed to one situation that happened in Eugene in 2023, for which we had multiple reports. So 48 reports coming from the same incident at the Sarang affordable housing community. So there were a few Black and African American families being targeted there, and 48 reports were made for that case. So that could have inflated the cases in 2023, but still, if we would consider those all as one case, it would be a reduction from 50 to 14. I do not have the information yet to understand what happened here. So when we get the report from the state, we may understand it better. For the community disability, from 35 to 15, and cases targeting females are 41-0. So all those 41 cases came from the University of Oregon
Mm.
in 2023, and none was reported in 2024. All the cases refer to us to a very similar incident. We do not have all the details of the case, so it looks like it's mostly either a group of students or one activity in which people were targeted based on their identity there. For the ones that I have a question mark are questions I'm passing on to the Oregon GOJ staff and see if they can find some information as to why there was a decrease that is more significant than the overall decrease for the total number of cases for Eugene and for the state. So for those targeting gay residents, we went from 23 to 6. For gender non-conforming people, 19 to 5, and for immigrant community, 23 to 3. Another very significant decrease. And that may be different from what people are experiencing right now, given the federal executive orders and the increase in immigration enforcement. The cases involving the Jewish community also showed a decrease that is more significant than the overall reduction number of cases. That's attributed mostly to the flyers that happened in 2023. We had almost 120 reports. Some of them are found later not to be valid and for different reasons. The final data set had 85 cases targeting that community. Also here with the people identified as lesbian went from 10 to 0. The only group that saw an increase in the number of cases were the transgender community. They went from 5 to 8. And that aligns with other things that has been observed in the current reporting. So state hotline staff are also expecting an increase of cases involving that community, targeting that community. Then I looked at the cases, the criminal cases for the same groups. And here you can see for the Asian community remain the same. For the Black and African American community, a big decrease. So this is similar to what we experience in the non-criminal incidents. For the gay community, the case went from 9 to 20. So there is a significant difference. For the gender non-conforming, a decrease from 8 to 2. And for the Jewish community, an increase from 12 to 16. But for the other groups, not very significant change, or the numbers are too small for us to compare. So this is just a snapshot of the data. You'd get more details once we get the full report from the Oregon GOJ. And that would also allow us to compare the situation here in Eugene to the rest of the state, with one caveat that report is based on counties and not on cities. So we have to compare our data with the overall for Lane County and other counties in Oregon. But Eugene usually represents more than half of all the cases in Lane County. So what happened here influenced the overall result for the county. So that is the very abbreviated summary of the data for 2023. And I can take some questions if you have them.
I think there's a hand from Commissioner Booker.
Oh, yes. I have a question and then a statement. First thing is, do you have, with this report that you just gave us, do you have any recommendation for these communities? Because my whole point in asking that question is, what's the point of having data if we're not going to do anything with it? So given that you have the data, do you have a plan in place to help these communities better understand actionable resist steps they could take, or maybe some seminars, or I would like to know, like, what are you going to do in preparation to help these communities with the data you've collected?
Yeah, based on the data, the results are actually trending in a positive direction. So there was a reduction in the number of cases, although we would like to see 0 cases. So the smaller number that we saw in 2024 is still very significant, and many people are still being affected by hate incidents and hate crimes. What we offer here is training, education, outreach. We concluded a round of listening sessions in which we heard from multiple communities. We are right now checking back with everyone who participated in the listening session to make sure that all the notes and recommendations that were gathered reflect what they shared at the meeting. So Melissa is doing that work right now. And I believe we'll get next week some.
Yes,
some
yeah.
data.
We're already
So-
getting feedback now.
We are getting that information to make sure that the recommendations that we have in our report are reflecting what community groups shared with us through the listening sessions. And that will inform some of the work that we'll be doing moving forward. So I may be able to share more with the commission once we have that report finalized by next month, because we are right now checking with participants of the listening sessions. And then we are going to discuss with our internal equity and community engagement network before we can make the report available to the public. We also are finalizing this week the community engagement survey report, and that also has some recommendations, requests that we will make it their way into the community engagement guidelines we are finalizing. So we may have more to share in the upcoming meeting.
I think that, well, of course, we know those numbers are flawed. Especially, I don't think there's really a decrease. I think there's a drastic increase, but I just think there's delayed numbers, and a lot of the reporting is not getting accurately documented. And I would say this: it's you said the numbers in decrease as though it's a positive thing. I would challenge that it's not a positive thing just because you have some numbers that are decreasing. It falls on these individuals. And just like you being Brazil, if you came and you had a complaint and we said, well, there's not enough Brazilians complaining about it, so our numbers are good. Does that really matter to you as the individual who's being affected? No. You want people to care about you, not some numbers, because we don't have enough Brazilians complaining about racism or being harassed or attacked, et cetera. So the numbers, I think, are very flawed. But I say this to say we need to have more actionable things we can do with the data other than just reporting it. I heard you say some things, some steps that you took in different groups and listening sessions, but understanding boots on the ground, talking to individuals, seeing the impact of what's happening in our communities right now, the numbers are definitely flawed. So I feel like we need to do more, or see if we can do more with the data that you're presenting, rather than just us feeling, a pat on the back because the numbers seem to be decreased.
Thanks, Commissioner Booker. Vice Chair Hira.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I tend to agree with what Dr. Booker said, and particularly in this climate, seeing the numbers go up even explicitly for the LGBTQ plus community, the trans community, the gay community. I think there's a lot of fear of retaliation right now for being your true self and identifying with the community that you identify with in public. So it's just troubling, and trying to think about ways to resist the tendency to feel that intimidation and to take that on in a way that would make people feel less inclined to report these kinds of things. So thanks.
Welcome.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting what the 2025 data says, because I'm assuming we will see a spike. It'll be interesting if we do, because I think if we don't, then perhaps people are not reporting because of fear of whatever. I really appreciate the listening sessions, because I think that's what you can do now before a new data set comes out. And like you said, there will be recommendations coming from that. So it's hard when you're looking at data that's, old already, and there's been such a big change at the federal level between those numbers and what probably is happening right now, so.
Commissioner Dixon.
It has occurred to me that even though the city doesn't have a lot of money right now, that there are ways to broadcast for free through PSAs in the community that hate crimes are illegal and that they can be reported. Part of what I believe in the community is that people don't always know that what has happened to them is considered wrong
Mhm.
and that they have the right to report. So I'm just questioning whether there is perhaps a way for us to get into the radio announcements and some free newspaper announcements that say this is a time of concern. And I'm wondering what other people think about that.
Commissioner Booker?
I wholeheartedly agree with Commissioner Poindexter. That was exceptional suggestion. I definitely think more advertisement and more of the governmental offices, commissions, all could promote human rights and ways that people can actionably resist and steps to take, not just coming from the Human Rights Commission, but the city as whole could start its own kind of campaign to resist and fight. And I think we saw by the turnout at the rally that just happened at the City Hall that we have enough Eugenians that care to be informed and want actionable resistance steps that they could take. And a lot of times people feel hopeless when they don't see a result of them standing up and trying to do the right thing or reporting it. So the city needs to show, and they can do this with a very low budget, that city needs to show that it is taking a stance, actionable stance on resistance steps against the climate that's happening, especially the way that Oregon presents itself nationally, fighting against what's happening. Our state as a whole is fighting against what's happening. We have laws and legislation in place that's fighting against what's happening. So why isn't Eugene City Council, city government, city offices, every department fighting and showing its resistance, not just coming from the human rights? So yes, Commissioner Poindexter, you're spot on. A hell of a lot more can be done, especially from the news outlets. I see that we have Register Guard and KEPW attending right now, which John Q does an exceptional job, I've seen, of reporting the truth and accurately reporting the truth. So these other media outlets and entities can do the same. Especially our city should be leading in this area, not just human rights. So thank you, Commissioner Poindexter, for your suggestion.
I think as an example to that, Commissioner Booker, the city of Corvallis just made a huge decision about declaring itself a sanctuary city for transgender, intersex, and gender diverse. And I agree with you. It would be nice to see the cities take a stance on that.
Oh yeah, thank you for bringing that up. That's huge. That is huge. So Eugene definitely can do it. If Corvallis did it, we should be leading the way on it.
So jumping in, I think one of the pieces of us getting this data set is these are numbers for us to look at, reference, and to understand groups that are reporting and at what rates in which they're reporting. And so for us, looking at this year to year, thinking about these trends can be really valuable if you start to see peaks and troughs. But understanding causality is correlation doesn't always demonstrate exactly what's going on, the full picture, right? So I think looking at this year, you are going to see quite a few historically marginalized groups not engaging or liaisoning with government agencies. And so if we come to this time next year and we see, hey, that number for transgender individuals went down, it's not necessarily because transgender individuals were targeted less. It could be a reflection of their trust or their sense of freedom, insecurity, and reporting. And so for us, having that broader context and finding ways to contextualize this within the current moment is really, really important. But I think for us, our charter, looking at this is to inform us. And this is to say, here are these groups that are reaching out, that are reporting. Here are the groups that aren't reporting. Here's that trend over time. Are there proportional differences year to year where we saw an uptick in a specific group and having that broader context, which I appreciate. Such as stating, oh, there's a concentration of these incidents at this apartment complex, or, you know, this was as a result of, you know, the flyer distribution, or someone who had repeated, those are really important notes for us. And then part of what we do as a commission is we answer those questions that Commissioner Booker asked. We say, what are we going to do in this body? And what are we going to advise and recommend to the city organization to do? And is there something at a substantive level for that policy recommendations or procedural recommendations to the city and the city council? And so I think looking at this and thinking about those trends is very, very important. And for us, let's take this and let's come up with something, and let's say this is what we can do. And I think this is very, very important to put into context as we may see staffing changes change and investment into human rights on all levels, local and federal government, you know, are going to be impacted. So this public body will persist through all of that. And thinking about what we can do and to liaison within our communities is really, really important. So I just want to put that added context in there. For the marketing conversation, I'm gonna put that right here because it's on our agenda to dive further into that. So I'm gonna go into that marketing conversation with you all here in about 20 minutes, and then we've got 15 minutes held for that. So we might be able to start to answer some of those questions and talk a little bit about what that ad hoc committee discussed and what that outline could look like. So any other questions, charters from that data set? So let's put it all on our to-do list to do a deep dive into this month, and then we'll put it on our agenda to discuss some directions or recommendations that could be a derivative of that data set next month. So our next item is request for support regarding Juneteenth.
And we do have Shanae Joyce Stringer on. Let me
Okay,
just,
wonderful. Thank you.
Make her a panelist. Hold on just 1 second. And just so you know, I don't see the person for the Eugene Men's course yet, just so you know. Shanae, can you hear us? And you're, oh, yes.
Okay.
There you go. Welcome.
Hey Shanae, welcome.
Thank you.
So we've got you slotted for about 10 minutes here. So if you provide any information on your request and then provide some space for commissioners to ask you questions, that'd be fabulous. So welcome.
Absolutely. So you have my written request. I'm going to summarize what you already see. My nonprofit Black Youth Inc. is serving as a fiscal sponsor for the Juneteenth gathering. It was initiated last year with the cancellation of Eugene Juneteenth. And it was a collective effort of community members coming together to ensure that the holiday was still observed with great support from the city of Eugene, as well as volunteers within the community to make this event happen. From that, we have come together to bring forth the event again this year by actually honoring the holiday on the actual date. So it'll be Thursday, June 19th. It is a free community event for everyone to come together to highlight the importance and significance of Juneteenth and what it referenced to Black and African American members of our community, but also nationally. And it's an opportunity to also support Black-owned business vendors that will be there, also be able to have access to community resources through many CBOs that will be present. And also serve as an educational space between some of the city display, as well as speakers and presenters that will be in attendance of the event. We also hold space for elders. We like to honor the elders in the community. And so they have their designated space where we also provide them with a meal and some trinkets just as a sign of gratitude. And then we also have a youth zone space so that they are able to have some interactive activities. They also receive books and other Juneteenth materials so that they also continue their learning and knowledge about Juneteenth. That's my summary.
Great. Thank you. So commissioners, do we have any questions about this request for support?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear where it was. Is it at the farmer's market?
Yes, it is.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, so this request for support is for $1,000, correct, Sinead?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and does everyone feel comfortable with that amount? Any discussion on that? Okay, well, there's not significant discussion. Oh, Commissioner Booker, I saw you unmuted.
Oh. No, I'm sorry. No discussion.
Oh, okay, no problem. Okay, well, if we don't have any further questions, we can bring it to the floor. Does anyone want to put forward a motion?
Move to approve the funding request in the full amount of $1,000.
Okay,
Second.
okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Any abstain? Okay, so moved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sinead. We
We
look
hope
forward to
to
your
see you
event.
there, and I will share with Melissa to share to you all the volunteer list because it definitely takes many hands to put this together.
Cool.
Sounds good, Sinead. I'll be in touch.
All right, take care. Okay. Our next item is a request for support from the Eugene Gay Men's Chorus. And do we have a representative?
They said they'd be here at 6, but I don't see that person on here.
Okay. So the requested funding date is June, so we may be able to delay to our next meeting, and then see if we can reach out to them.
Yeah, I'll reach out to them now.
Okay. All right,
They're gonna reach out now, I think. Oh, good, thank you.
okay. Well, with our request for support complete, our next item is HRC outreach plan and HRC awards. So I can kick off that dialogue just so that we have a little structure for it, and then we'll talk about the context of the HRC awards and a little bit of what we talked about at our ad hoc group, our advisory group last Wednesday. So as you all know, we had an ad hoc group work on the statement to read to city council. City council was on a brief recess and I was out of town yesterday, so that statement has yet to be read, but will be likely sometime in the next month. And so we approved for me to read that statement as well as develop a brief memo as an ask to council for endorsing that. And part of our desire for the city to kind of speak outwardly about the implications from the current administration and the decisions that are happening at the federal level. So we will be putting that on the council agenda, likely at the next council meeting, or a date set by Office of Equity Community Engagement. So whenever we get that date, we'll send it out to folks that are interested in attending. So in conjunction with that, our body talked about putting together a public outreach plan. And something that is advising the city organization on how to promote its current human rights charter and some of our mechanisms for hate and bias reporting and our human rights code, and really putting that in the context of the current moment and delineating where our jurisdiction falls within the discourse of hate, bias, and bigotry that's happening at a national level. And saying, where does the city of Eugene stand? What is human rights code? What is something that we talked about was deferring largely to code. And speaking a lot about things that are already within our human rights charter as a city. And so in that statement, we have drawn from multiple areas of code to highlight what the city of Eugene has said it's already doing and what it stands for. And so there are some very distinct aspects of code. 4.613 is an area that really dives into who we are and what we mean when we say we're a human rights city and what we're upholding. So our ad hoc group spoke about a couple different modalities of communicating more broadly with the public. So there's a topic about a potential ad in a newspaper. There's a cost association, but there's some interest in promotion through a newspaper. Digital marketing, so making recommendations to add a banner to the City of Eugene website was something that Cynthia had recommended. So that would be saying whenever you click on the City of Eugene website, actually having a banner with clickable links similar to what a bulletin for like emergency weather or news updates or things like that would be. That members of the public would be given an opportunity to click on and to kind of highlight the human rights work in a really front and forward facing way. As well as some promotion of different human rights ideas, especially those outlined in code on social media. And so our idea is producing content that could be translated over into Instagram tiles or something that could be posted on the website. So those are a couple of our major promotional components. And then Commissioner Booker had shared some ideas about media engagement and his liaison with some media organizations for us to share a little bit about our statement and what we as a body would like to represent. So after we develop that and deliver that, our goal is to be liaisoning really effectively with some media resources so that we can reach a couple different audiences and hopefully have a really effective partnership with local media. And then the topic of ongoing engagement came up in that meeting. And so when we say ongoing engagement, it was really highlighting this sentiment of, okay, we make a declaration in this moment, but what does our strategy for engaging with the public and continuing to share this, so it's not just a one-stop shop, okay, we said it all in this memo or this post. So what we talked about in two different ways was some goals associated with digital marketing that would be making recommendations for more frequent posts about human rights with the city of Eugene, kind of seeing that more front and center at a higher frequency. And then thinking about public outreach events. And I think one of the group's favorite events or event styles that we've discussed are those panel discussions in which we actually invite members of the public to participate and to share from their perspective. And I know that we've had topical panels and we've had discussion about having affinity-based panels. And Commissioner Booker had some ideas for inviting leaders in the Black community to come and hold a panel and for us to facilitate that space and to moderate it. I know that we had a conversation at our ad hoc group. I think Commissioner Poindexter, you talked about kind of echoing some of the sentiments that we shared in our December panel and kind of revisiting that within the context of the current moment. And thinking about that as part of our ongoing strategy. And at our last panel discussion that we held in December, there were multiple community members that said, hey, if you bring someone to speak at a panel, then they bring their network and you share this space with members of the public. You're going to have people that have a place to really liaison and to express their perspective. And if you provide free food, people will come, which was a funny anecdote. But truly, we had a really thought-provoking conversation in December. And in a lot of ways, it was preparing for the current moment, thinking about things that we're going to come that are here. And a lot of different people in our community are working on projects and their specific areas of expertise. And within their specific segments, and we see a lot of coalition building happening in various advocacy-based organizations or service providers, folks that are impacted. We also need a place for people to have a conduit for a public platform to promote and share and to engage the public in these dialogues. And as we saw in the hands-off protests, is that there is a lot of people who are interested in human rights and have a lot of attitudes and feelings surrounding what's currently happening. And so I think that we are well positioned as a commission to share what we do and to think about who in the community might want to engage. So as we think about this marketing plan, and I think really what it is, it's what is our statement going to be and how are we going to deliver it? Putting in those digital elements and that media engagement is really important. And something that we discussed at last week's group is maybe thinking about hosting a panel discussion in June that is revisiting some of the topics that we discussed in December, but in the current moment, and engaging some members of the community who've been really vocal and might be looking for a platform. And what we also discussed is maybe using that as a platform for delivering the HRC Leadership Award and seeing that as a really positive point of engagement for the community as well. So that maybe folks who are engaged in that would have a venue that, you know, they could share a little bit about their work, and, you know, folks who are receiving that award, organizations that are receiving that award would likely want to engage in that dialogue as well. So those are some thoughts and some conversation. I love what you shared about PSAs, and I was thinking about that as a potential promotional strategy. So that's the broad scope. I'm gonna open the floor up for questions, considerations, ideas on that. Yeah, and so I saw Commissioner Booker and then I saw Commissioner Bulbum. Commissioner Booker?
Oh, yes, thank you, Chair. Love everything you said. One thing that I just wanted to kind of just throw in there is thinking about, again, I don't like to have data unless we can do something with it. So one of the things I think that we could probably do hand in hand with the marketing aspect is also recruitment. Like some of these groups that are being targeted, a recruitment aspect, if we're doing affinity groups, if we're doing these panel discussions with these specific groups, is maybe throwing in a recruitment aspect in there so that they feel that they have an outlet to take a stand and to actually take action, to care about their communities, and they're more direct cultural groups. So just some kind of recruitment aspect. We're always looking for, you know, people to represent each of these communities or each of these cultural groups. And then that, I think we'll have a large, more diverse group if we target these groups for recruitment.
Absolutely.
I just wanted to share, perhaps a free way of getting some information out is look out Eugene Springfield. They have a civic partner program that I think is free. So that might be a way for HRC to get our name and our message out there.
Okay.
What is our process now if all of us are agreed that we want more information about rights to be in the community? What exactly is our process? Can we make a motion to write a request to city staff or city council?
So, yeah, we've already approved as a commission that we're gonna make a marketing plan surrounding these components, and we have our outline.
Okay,
So I think really what it is just us putting together that content and delivering it.
okay,
And we have the approval, so whatever we put together, we can send forward at any time. So we're in a good place to do so, and the commission gave the ad hoc group the ability to write that and deliver it.
okay.
So And our statement has already been approved, so, yeah, we can draw from that. So I think the next step for this would be us thinking about, when we're gonna meet and
Okay.
do that. And then sending that forward to the city staff, because most of that's advising the city organization for
Yes.
that, those types of promotion. And then as per the panel, the discussion about hosting a panel in June, that would be a decision that we'd have to make today.
Okay,
And so if that's something that we're interested in, we're pretty skilled at doing it at the library. So we know what that format looks like and just about how much time it takes to organize something like that. But I would be looking for probably two volunteers at minimum to jump in on that planning and communication process. And then at least 2 to 3 individuals who would be willing to be present. So that we can set up chairs and put out food and, you know, really liaison with the public effectively. So if that's something that y'all are interested in, if I get a couple hand raises that say, hey, I would be interested in being there. We can select a date based off of people's availability, sometime in the month of June. So,
Oh, Chair, I can help with the planning part, but I don't know if, my dad might be having another surgery or procedure in June.
okay,
So I don't want to lock into June unless I know for sure I can be there, but I definitely can be on the, planning preparation committee.
great.
I would like to help, my time is tight these next, so I think maybe for the event is where I can help.
Okay, great. Anyone else?
I'm happy to help, Chair.
Okay, great. Write you down.
I am as well, and I have
Okay.
a linkage that I want to ask about. Can we make sure we invite a lot of media to this June panel? Because we could expand our impact if we made sure we were being reported.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be
Yeah.
a media day.
Mhm. And Commissioner Poindexter's texter is gonna take all the interviews.
Oh, I object.
That's great. I agree. Okay, well, that's great. So, I think we can put a motion on the floor that we'd like to move forward with the panel discussion in June. And our ad hoc committee, and folks who have volunteered, will talk about the substance of that panel and then liaison with city staff for some of those invitations. So that's a motion. Maybe a second. Oh,
So I can't do it, but I was just curious, do
Okay.
we wanna
I'll
land
second.
on a date today, or is that with the ad hoc
I
committee?
think the ad hoc.
Okay.
You need to work with the library and space availability.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, so we'll just wait for that, okay.
Yeah,
Sounds good.
so our target's June, but we'll give ourselves some flexibility there. Okay, do we get a second?
I'll second it.
Okay.
Like, we can vote. I would say like, we don't require a vote for this, because it's a bit part of your work
It's
plan.
within the work plan.
Yeah, so if there is agreement, you can move by agreement on this one.
Okay,
Oh,
well, if we want to move by agreement, that'll
We
save
do.
us all from
Super
saying aye.
easy.
Love it.
Okay. We all agree?
Yes.
Fabulous. Let's do it. Okay, so we'll reach out to the ad hoc group, we'll put together some content to deliver, and then we'll pick a date, for the panel discussion and reach out to everyone about that date. Fabulous. Anything else on that topic before we move on? Okay. Our next topic, which we highlighted a few, is just holding space for discussion surrounding emerging issues. So this section is just titled Emerging Human Rights Issues. And what I would really like in this space is for us to talk about what we're seeing, feeling, observing, and to really hold space for that dialogue. So there's a lot going on in the world. And I think it's very important that we, in this forum, talk about what's going on. And give folks a moment.
be easier to talk about what's not going on.
Okay, let's start there.
Preach.
Yeah,
What?
we have,
Clearly, it's a time of great risk and danger to everything and everyone. So it's hard to get words to describe that.
Vice Chair Hero.
Agree with my colleague, Commissioner Poindexter. I am caught between feeling much of the time like I'm doing all I can, and the feeling that I and others and all of us are not doing enough, because the momentous consolidation of power amongst the people who already kind of bought and paid for our whole government and society, to see that continuing to push further is really troubling. So just trying to be mindful of how each of us can do more, or make our work more effective, or collaborate more with other stakeholder groups, so that we can not feel so internal and retreating because of the nature of all these challenges, but to try to be outward in the way that we.
One thing to follow up on that is a few podcasts I've been listening to, but I've really been grateful for hearing people say, like, because it can be so overwhelming, to really try and pick a focus and put your time and energy into that. So I don't know if that's something for our committee to do or just personally, but I want to share that. And then also my feelings are, I mean, this is human rights related and everything related. Like there's no checks and balances anymore at the federal level. So like, who knows what's gonna happen? And it's really scary. And I'm speaking from a place of privilege. But like, it's, yeah, we don't know what's gonna happen next, because apparently there's no rules anymore. So.
Commissioner Booker.
Yes, well, I always like to tap into history, and to me, there's nothing more resilient than Black people. And I will always stand on that 10 toes down, considering how this country was created and built, and how the capitalism, has really built itself on the back of slavery and institutionalized racism. And I think one thing we can learn from watching Black people, survive our own Holocaust, our own genocide in numerous forms, is you always reinvent resistance. And Black people have always found ways to make something out of nothing. And I feel like this is just another one of those things where for the Black community, we're looking at like, it's more the same. A lot of people are seeing and going through this for the first time culturally. And it's a shock to a lot of people, because the most influential of our society is the uneducated. And they're the most easy to be radicalized. And a lot of them do not even want to socialize outside of their social structure, social groups. So it's hard to influence ignorance when it takes itself and kind of hermetizes itself to their own kind of cultural beliefs in a way they feel like this country should be ran. I think a lot of the people who are causing a lot of the racial discourse are the one percenters, people, the one percenters, the people that have money, because everything that we do is controlled by money. And then that trickles down to the most uneducated of our communities and our society. And that's how, we see what we're seeing and going through today. And it's going to take that middle ground of people who want to resist and want to live in a better world and a better community, to make their voices louder than everyone else. And that's what we have to continuously do and remind ourselves of. with the people look at the system as a big machine, but the machine has many little pieces and parts that make it run. And one of those little pieces and parts is educating our community as to how their city council, what their city council controls, what eWeb controls, what are different, different things that really affect them at this level they don't have any education on. So they looking at it like, oh, it's the government, it's the feds, it's the president, it's this, it's the Congress, it's that. Yes, that is for the larger picture, but it starts with our city council people. It starts with the people who are on these boards, the eWeb and at the banks. It starts at our local, these people that we pass every day. We look at them, we pass them in our community every day. And a lot of these people have control from their positions that people aren't even aware of. And so I think one of the things we can do is do our due diligence and just educating people on the levels of office that these people hold and the influences they have. Letting people understand what powers city council have, what powers these commissions have. Because people look at the machine as too big when they just need to look at the little bitty pieces and parts that are making the machine work. And that goes down to city level. So just educating people on how this really works, how city council, how much control the Chamber of Commerce has. A lot of people don't understand the amount of control that they have and influences they have on the way the city council votes. And how the money plays a part into a lot of the things that people are feeling right now. And then also this rise of this Christian nationalism, this supremacy thing that's going on, that's not allowing space for anybody to be themselves. Again, redefine resistance. Power to the people has always been a cliche statement, but Black Panthers have always stood by that, and it's true. The power relies in the people, but the people must be educated, and the people must be informed, and you cannot fight against oppression through ignorance. We have to address it, and I think that's very important that we figure out ways to educate our lowest level community as to how they can take actionable resistance. And again, goes to marketing, goes to education, goes to these groups. So we're doing our part, but it takes more people than just the Human Rights Commission to educate the masses, But yeah, that's my piece on the whole thing. But just keep reinventing resistance, and trust me, this too shall pass. Like this is, we've been through a hell of a lot worse, and I already know this is going to be more of the same. We'll get past it, but it's going to take people coming together, and it's crazy because I look at what's happening like I look at funerals, and with our families, most time we don't come together until something bad happens. And this is a funeral that we're going through right now. So people got to come together. People got to educate themselves, and people have to keep resisting. People cannot just stand on the sidelines. The days of standing on the sidelines and watching are over. So it's going to affect everybody. So, even those people that are causing the problems, they're going to be affected too. So we just have to keep reinventing resistance, and we'll get through it.
I feel that Dr. Booker just outlined our June panel. I think that reinventing resistance and then putting these points underneath that about understanding history, understanding power, understanding action, that it just feels that that's where we need to go, to me.
Yeah, and I like to use the officer, for example. I don't know how long he's been a detective. I don't even know how long he's been living in Eugene. But I found it kind of like I was torn. I was like, yeah, I'm so proud, but I'm like, really? Like,
Right.
you know what I mean? Like, you're a detective, like, and you couldn't detect what's going on in your community, I'm feeling like this is something that should be onboarding for police officers. How do they live in the community that they serve, where the racism is so saturated, but yet they don't even know anything about the Mims house? Like,
Right.
You know, like it baffles me that he said it, but I'm proud at the same time. And I'm like, come on now, really? So it goes to show you the importance of even educating our services department. Like the police officers should be aware of the Black history here. You know, like it's asinine to me that a lot of these government agencies and people that work within our city itself don't know anything about the cultures that they sit there and make laws and legislation for and rules for. And that's what I mean by educating the lowest level of our community is these people just get votes based off money, but the people that they're really affecting don't even know to show up to prevent, you know, the DA from being in that position or the sheriff from being in that position or the city council person who is a secret white supremacist supporter in that position. Like we don't hold these people accountable. We don't hold them accountable for what they should know in the communities that they should be knowledgeable of. And like I said, I like to use the officer as an example, and I'm glad that he did it. But it goes to show you how much we have people within our own community that are in positions of power that are affecting the communities that they are supposed to be serving, and they don't have not even an inkling of the histories of these communities and how they can better support these communities. And that's the ignorance that I'm talking about. So that's what we need to address is why do we have people in these positions that are serving us in these positions, but they don't know anything about our community. And that's baffling to me, but yes, thank you for bringing that up. But I like to use the officer as an example, but yeah, we got to do better.
Vice Chair here has a hand.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, this is a good opportunity to hold space and talk about a wide variety of things that are really frustrating, you know. Moments ago I walked out, I'm at work right now, and you know, I served some food, and I overheard somebody saying, I can't talk about drag queens to my mom. You know, just somebody saying, and that speaks to what Dr. Booker is saying about ignorance and things being in the shadows, knowledge not being able to promulgate and be spread, because we have a paradox of more and more connected society, more stratification, and more threats to actually sharing about topics that are in the umbrella of DEI in any kind of way. And another thing I wanted to ask, because I'm here for most of this meeting and doing my best, but I'm not sure if at any point we've been able to even discuss the 4 University of Oregon students that have been targeted so brutally by the federal government. What are we as a Human Rights Commission able to do to protect them, their peers, and everybody who is here to study? The First Amendment is not something that applies selectively. It's not supposed to be for certain demographics of people. It's supposed to apply broadly, and that's literally supposed to be the top foundation of the Bill of Rights. So how can we say, F you to those persecution?
Chair.
Yeah, sorry, just one piece of information to share with the commission that since 2023, the City of Eugene requires all city staff to go through our Belonging training series. And module 1, the training series does include a training on history of Eugene and of Oregon. And that we do present information to our staff about the history of the Black community in Eugene. And I believe what Lieutenant William was referring to is I'm making the connection between what we offer in that training and the address when he was dealing with the case that initially he reported as a residence and did not make the connection that was the Means house. Although everyone is required to attend the training, we cannot guarantee how much people retain, and most staff do engage with the content quite well. But we do know that some staff do not believe or understand really well why we offer that content and why city council has so many policies on creating belonging. So we are trying to do our best at tweaking our trainings now with new language and new examples to make sure that people would be more attuned to what we're sharing with them.
You know, there's so many things on the topic of current context that I would could talk for hours. But I think one of the pieces really sticking out to me in this dialogue is that word inclusion. And our role, as we assume this public facing role, this positionality, and we say we're gonna talk about human rights in this public context and advise for 3 years. And we're liaisoning with a variety of different groups. And how important it is living in a democracy, living in a society where part of what we should be celebrating is that difference in perspective. And could you close your PowerPoint for a second? Sorry.
For a file.
You're okay. And I think one of the pieces that there are so many people that are afraid to share that moment of revelation. Hey, I didn't know that. And I'm really happy to know that. And that there is a culture that exists within, you know, the United States that doesn't allow you to not know. And doesn't allow you to have the vulnerability to learn and make acknowledgement that you've learned or that you've changed or you develop perspective. And that can be exclusive for a lot of people. And that can lead to division for a lot of people. And, you know, Thomas, you brought up DEI and how many organizations and institutions, you know, work to implement DEI initiatives and realize that as a culture, so many people did not share perspective or shared socialization or understanding of history or context, and how challenging it was for a lot of people and institutions to hold that space. And I think about that. It's really important because we're now living in a country that says it's illegal to do training on that. And to hold space on that. And to allow people to have points of contact to say, you know what, I've never heard that perspective before. Or I didn't even know that exists in my community. Or I've never been to that event. Or I didn't know that there was a shared history. Or I didn't know that I had that social identity and that impacted me too. And I think that is one of the crises. It's a crisis in division. And we're losing the tools to remedy division in a country that's already been divided for so long. And, you know, part of us being in this commission is trying to figure out how to hold space to remedy that division and represent Eugene as a whole. And I think that that's a really, really hard charter. And there are things that are unconstitutional happening. There are a lot of people that didn't like the word plutocracy or oligarchy 12 months ago that are now hearing that word saying, you know what, there might be some truth to that, you know? And I say that in a really honest perspective is that you can see political leaders that have been saying that for a really long time start saying that now, and a lot of people are saying, wow, there's a lot of truth to that. I'll come and I'll hear what you have to say about it. And I think one of the things that what Dr. Booker, you shared is like human rights issues shouldn't get to the level that they get in the United States. It shouldn't have to be a constitutional crisis for us to listen and have dialogue about what's been happening for a really long time. And local policy, like when you see just a slight shift in rights happen, and I'm gonna speak through my paradigm, you said like focusing on that, what's that thing you focus on? Like, I talk about unsheltered populations a lot. I spend a lot of time. Like, when HB 3115 came through and prohibited camping measures in this community, that definition of reasonably objective wasn't like something that was used to protect people who are unsheltered. It instead said, actually, our municipality can give you citations in more spaces now. And we're gonna take away the 1,000 feet from educational institutions, the 100 feet away from waterways, the 60 feet away from creeks. Like, that was a loss for human rights in my lens. And that happened, and the community just accepted it and moved on, and there were a lot of people that were really negatively impacted, right? And we're living in a society where like incremental changes, incremental backsliding happens every day, and we're not making a big deal out of it. And then we look and we're like, wow, the whole mountaintop is down at 0 foot elevation. What happened? It's happening all the time. And there's a lot of progress that happens too. And that's the ebb and flow of our society. But when you see something and you are like, I can see that that is going to harm someone, you should say it the first time you see it, not after we've done backsliding for 5 years, 10 years, 50 years, decades, centuries. And I think that what is so unfortunate is that the United States was primed for what's happening right now. And 77 million Americans said yes. So here we are. And I think that it's really important to think about the consequences of decisions at all levels. And when we have this ability to liaison from our own perspective or within a marginalized group, it's really important that we advise political leaders like, hey, that's not a good decision. And if we made this type of incremental change in this direction for the next 10 years, this is what your society would look like. And not just giving. It can't just be giving, because someone in a position of authority or with social, economic, or political capital says that we want that. And I think that that's a lot of what I've been thinking about, is that we've given and given and given, and now we don't like what's being taken. But we decided this democratically. So we have to chew on that, and then we have to think about what's being taken and what we can do as a commission and as members of the community and public. That's my little piece. Yeah. And Thomas, I want to echo your sentiment. People being deported because of their immigration status when they're trying to achieve education or speak about their beliefs publicly, and speak about a thing that this commission spoke publicly about and asked the city to engage in divestment for. Those students are being deported for that. And that's happening across the nation. And there's currently someone in El Salvador that's not supposed to be there, that isn't coming back. And I think it's really important for us to recognize that that mistake could have been made in our community for someone that we know, and very well may still be made, and it might not have been a mistake. So, there's a lot of people in our government that are targeting people, and there's a lot of people who are scared. And for us that, aren't talking to folks in the immigrant community, when folks in our community start talking to them, because they need support. So I like Cynthia reinventing resistance.
That's
Sounds
the
sounds like a
theme.
great theme. So Commissioner Booker, you'll be coined. But there's a lot to talk about in our current moment. So thanks for holding space for this discussion, and let's continue this discussion, because I think we're gonna need to have it for about 4 years. Maybe longer. Okay, no. Anything else to share before we move on to our next item? Okay. Our next item on our agenda is simply to look at our council liaison information, and what we've been asked to do is to look through the tentative agenda and any items on there that may be of significance, or things that we would like to engage in as a commission and provide comment, recommendations. And I think what I would love for us to do is just to read through the tentative agenda, and as a body, let's circle the things that are of interest, and if something's of interest to you, I will circle it. And I will reach out to Councilor Leach and request any information or anything that y'all would like to know. So in that council, the tentative agenda starts on 22 of your packet. And feel free to just shout it out and I'll just circle, and maybe give me the page number.
Chair, I want to share one thing that happened last night. Council approved the charters for neighborhood associations. And there was a requirement for them to include an equity statement. And some neighborhood associations are also nonprofit, so some of them were afraid of having an equity statement in the documents, and that becoming a limitation for them to access funds from the federal government. We actually have one of them, the Whitaker, who was awarded a grant for affordable housing. And that grant was suspended, then reinstated, but there is a lot of uncertainty if they are going to be able to continue with the project or not. But the statements that we draft for them and that most associations adopted is basically a statement of standing up for discrimination, not accepting discrimination, and make sure that the associations are open to everyone. So it is in alignment with this Civil Rights Act. So it's not expected that will become a problem for any of them, but we push for that statement to be included in all charters, so board members would have language to use if someone comes to a meeting and says something that is offensive to some residents. So they now have a tool to use in those situations.
Thanks for that.
Blake, had you already been working on the shopping cart and metal theft item, the homelessness and poverty work group?
We have had some discussions surrounding that, and I see that it's coming up in our work session. And so part of what we'll have to do in preparation for that is the homelessness and poverty work group has had some thoughts on it. So we may want to send over some perspective from the homelessness and poverty work group prior to that April 23rd meeting.
And that's coming right
And
up.
that's coming up, yeah. And that's something that Councilor Leach has requested. So if you all are comfortable, I may write a synopsis of the perspective of the homelessness and poverty work group and send it. Okay.
Does that work group also have they talked about the next one, the unlawful transfer of particular portion of railway? It looks like maybe.
Yeah,
addressing
it's all in
panhandling.
one, yeah, it's all in one component. But yeah, it's in the work session request, it was a transference component. And we actually have an outstanding inquiry for data surrounding this. So part of what we had discussed was if there were data to sustain vehicular accidents or safety incidents that were happening during those transference. So I don't know if you all have had any success in collecting those data sets. But maybe it's something that we can follow up on. And I'll find that and make sure I'll regain your email. And we'll see if there's anything, but that might be putting, put more context to what we're trying to communicate for that April 23rd component as well. So I can produce something and share.
Chair, April 28th will be the next opportunity to provide comments to council.
Okay,
So if you want to read the statement, there
for
will
that
be the next
statement,
date, yes.
okay.
Does the homelessness and poverty work group have opinions to submit about the HUD plan?
We actually, I believe they came and spoke to us,
Good.
at a meeting, Genevieve came.
Okay.
So we provided comment as a commission. But we'll certainly tune in and provide any additional context if there's anything that comes to mind. Genevieve requested that information from us last year. For the police auditor recruitment component in May, I know that was something that we were invited. Is that still something that's open to commissioners?
I would have to check. There was a request, an invitation for commissioners to participate in the process. We did not get a volunteer.
Okay. So if that's of interest to anyone, or if you didn't see that, that would be participating in the recruitment of the police auditor.
If our statement is being read on the 28th of April, is that a meeting that we could all attend?
Certainly.
Okay. Is that at noon?
7:30.
7:30.
7:30,
Yeah.
good, okay.
It's a meeting.
It's virtual.
So for those who are not familiar with city council, when you see work session, it's mostly staff presenting information to the council. And then the meetings when they pass ordinance, resolutions, and more like outward facing actions.
Anything
Thank you,
else of
that's very
interest?
helpful.
Well, looks like on the 21st, there'll be a report from the Civilian Review Board, the annual report. So for anyone serving that liaison capacity, that would be a beneficial thing to place on calendar. And then there's a budget committee meeting on May 14th, where we might hear some information on those budget priorities, one of our topics of conversation. So I circled those items that you all highlighted, so I can reach out to Councilor Leach, and it sounds like they have a date for our engagement with council, so. Fantastic. Any other requests or questions for council liaison? You can send an email to me after the meeting and I'll forward those along. Okay. Well, that concludes council liaison reports. And our next area of discussion, which we have, I think we can consolidate to about 5. Well, we can do this pretty quickly. So yeah, we have about 5 to 7 minutes. For city budget discussion. So the primary area for this, the advisory group wanted to talk to the commission about giving the permission for a ad hoc committee to meet and to discuss some of our strategic priorities for the budget. The timeline for budget committee meetings and engagement is outlined on the page 26 of the packet. And kind of why we need to move forward with that is just where our meetings align with this process. And we want to make sure that we produce recommendations in preparation for our next commission meeting that can be reviewed and approved and sent along before that budget approval date. So that's the biggest area for the budgetary conversation, and this is just us having the space to put something together so it can be approved at our next meeting. Does anyone have any questions on that process or that timeline? Any additional information from city staff?
Yeah, so the proposed budget, both parts of the budget will be available by April 25th. So they will be available on the website. The presentation to the budget committee is happening on the 30th of this month. So for the HRC to have an approved recommendation to be presented to council, to the budget committee, you would need to approve that recommendation on May 20th. And then on the following day, deliver it to the budget committee. So to get something approved on May 20th, you would need now to set up an ad hoc committee. That committee would prepare the recommendation, and then the entire commission can vote on May 20th and then present it to the budget committee on May 21st. Or May 28th. So those are the 2 days that would be able to provide your recommendations.
So our goal of the ad hoc committee would just be getting a small group of folks to meet at least one time this month to prepare and review those recommendations. And then have them prepared for a May 20th meeting. So is that of interest to anyone? Looking at probably a 2-hour time commitment. We're gonna be thorough. Yeah.
Sure, I'll volunteer, Jim.
Anyone else? If not, okay, so Commissioner Bradley, you and I can set up a time and go through that, put together something. So, looking at that, for folks that have reviewed budgetary materials, are there any, strategic priorities or areas of the city budget? It could be based off the scenarios that were presented, or just programs or, positions that you feel that you would like sustained or prioritized for any budgetary allotments.
What is the connection between this budget process and the referendum on the fire fee?
So very, very simply for us, every year, the Human Rights Commission says these are budgetary priorities.
Okay,
So regardless of that process, we are still positioned in a place to say, we would like the city to invest fiscally into these
Okay.
different areas.
all right.
Yeah. And the most important thing I think to communicate is what positions and programs we need to meet our human rights charter and actuate on our human rights work plan.
Mhm,
And so those are usually the primary areas of emphasis during that process.
mhm.
So,
I think we should say that we can't afford losing any other staff members from the cultural office or from the equity office or
Mhm.
because we can sort of see that coming.
Okay,
Yeah, I agree with Commissioner Poindexter. We're definitely the last tool in the toolbox. Whereas the dismantling of DEI, we were pretty much like a big brother or big sister or big cousin or whatever you want to call it to all different aspects of our city and government. But now we're the last tool in the tool shed since everything has been dismantled. The only thing that I don't know, I don't know. Who knows what they can do with executive orders? But we haven't been. Human rights has not been dismantled. So we are the last tool in the tool shed. And I think that will speak volumes at the budget committee. By them understanding that statement, we are the last line of defense right now. It's solely on our shoulders, along working with, the state Human Rights Commission and the National Human Rights Commission. I think more now than ever, our relationships with those two entities of our society should be strengthened. And I don't know how we do it with reaching out to the state human rights and then the national human rights, but just being on their radar that we are here, we're the areas that we're affected by. And hopefully at the budget committee, we have enough people that believe in human rights and aren't secretly opposed to it, that would want to fund and give us the budget we need in order to keep being that special tool.
Great. Any other notes for John and I? Okay, if you have anything that comes up, email us and we'll factor it into our recommendations statement. So yeah, thanks for sharing, and take a look at any of those scenarios or programs that you think would support our goals and let us know. Okay, our next item involves the Human Rights Commission making a motion to approve Commissioner Bradley to represent us on the Police Commission.
Sorry, Chair, would be a motion to recommend,
Mhm.
and then staff will forward his application to the mayor, because the police commission membership requires that the mayor makes an appointment to council.
Yeah, so the motion is us appointing John to represent us.
Recommending his appointment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. We gotta get our semantics correct, everyone. So for folks that know, is Commissioner Booker did resign from that assignment and said that Commissioner Bradley would be well positioned to sustain him in that role and sustain our engagement and with the police commission. So do we have a second for my motion?
I second it.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Okay, so moved. So we'll be moving forward with that process and we'll be having a meeting with the mayor.
Thank you.
Okay. So our next item on the agenda is the homelessness and poverty work group updates. And our primary updates. So the homelessness and poverty work group had a very short work group meeting this month. A couple members connected to discuss priorities for league and just a brief discussion on different topics. But one of the biggest areas of focus right now are us looking at those protocols for unsanctioned posting and preparing that for the discussion with the mayor and city manager. And then we'll be putting together a set of draft recommendations for the work session associated with the work session. I believe that was on the 21st. So we'll put something together. Yeah, you have it off the top of your head.
23rd.
23rd, okay. Pretty pleased in 2 more days. But we'll put something together to send over based off of the dialogue that we've had. And make sure that Counselor Leach can communicate that on our behalf. So outside of that, that's been the primary focus of the working group over the past 2 months. So that's all I have. Whole community working group, anything that y'all would like to share on recent efforts or updates for the commission?
Did Kiana log on?
I don't believe so. Yeah, no, she did not.
Okay. We met, Kiana and I chatted as co-chairs yesterday evening. And we had a very difficult conversation because in the past few months, WeSeeU has been making a lot of plans to recruit and expand. And we feel that we are in a position right now that we can't go forward with inviting community members into a process where we're not sure what's going to happen with staffing and support and budgeting and the ability to have events and the ability to have meetings. And so our really difficult conversation had to do with the insecurity in city funding and the insecurity in city staffing, because Kiana and I both felt that it was rather ill-advised or even unethical to invite people into a process that might not continue, or invite people into an expansion that might go away. So it was a difficult conversation, and we're going to bring it up at the WCU work group core meeting next week. But I'm just reporting that that's where we are in this moment.
Okay.
Does that
Yeah.
make some
absolutely.
sense?
Absolutely. Well, I think, determine where folks are at in that process. And then, certainly that's a conversation that we can have about how we would sustainably and effectively do that, over time. But, and it sounds like we have a little more, budgetary priority for staff support.
Yes.
So I'm gonna write that down,
You know.
because it's a very true sentiment.
We're volunteers and we can't move anything without staff support. That's it.
Okay. Well, let us know, what dialogue occurs and if there's any other updates, report back to us at the next meeting.
Mhm.
So our next item is, Office of Equity and Community Engagement updates.
Yeah.
So Fabio?
And I want to start with a comment on the role of volunteers supporting the Human Rights Commission. So everything starts with volunteers. That's how the whole program started, and they got it added to the city of Eugene code with the adoption of the Human Rights Code. And the commission actually created the program to get reports of hate crimes and incidents and support victims. It was all done by volunteers. Later on, it became part of the city administration with staff doing some of that work. When I joined the city, the WCU group was meeting all by themselves without staff's participation. They had a key to the community center. They would meet every Saturday, have a potluck, and then have conversations. That kind of arrangement is no longer possible. So we had some changes in the state law that now requires all these meetings to be documented, to be hybrid, so people can participate.
Yeah.
And that actually created a barrier
Mhm.
for a group like WCU to function properly as they did in the past.
Mhm.
So now, staff participation is required to comply with state law.
Mhm.
So that was something that was, for those who proposed those changes, it was a way to increase participation and access. But in some situations like this one has created a barrier because a group of volunteers cannot gather by themselves and propose a recommendation to the city
Right.
as an official part of the Human Rights Commission, the council advisory process. Our offices continue with our planning and our work. We know things may be impacted by the budget decisions that will be made soon. We are going to communicate with you as soon as a budget proposal is posted. So the first part of the budget will be posted on the 18th, so this Friday. That is a budget that has a 3.5 million reduction in the general fund, but it mostly keeps things as they are. So no reduction in service levels and no reduction in staff. Then the manager will propose an amendment that adds an additional $8 million in reductions to the general fund, and that will come with reductions in staff and in service levels. That's going to be posted on the 25th. So our planning may change depending on what is proposed. I have not seen the budget proposal, so that we have been working with scenarios. And things may change after the last minute, and then they may change when they go to the budget committee, and they may change again when they come to city council. So there will be a few months of waiting to know what the final configuration of our budget will be. But we do have a state law that requires a balanced budget approved by before July 1st. So that's going to happen because that's what the law requires. But unfortunately, you won't know much and be able to provide a lot of concrete comments until that all becomes public, and it will be a rushed process. We are trying to focus on summer outreach. So summer is our busiest season with lots of events. Melissa and Beatrice have been working on a list of events that they need help from volunteers. They are recruiting people internally, and then there will be opportunities for community members to participate as well. That's the moment when we are attending all those community events. neighborhood association events, the big festivals, church events, and sharing information, talking to residents, collecting information from them, sharing our hate and bias cards and information. So it really reaches a lot of people. And if you have capacity, joining one of those events would be great. We will share a list of events in the coming meeting. Last year, we did either attend, organize, or sponsor 106 events, not counting the ones that are reoccurring, just unique events. And for this summer season, we may get to 40 or 50 events. So there will be a reduction in number because of staffing capacity, anticipate situations, but we're still focusing on doing a lot of outreach this summer. And as I mentioned earlier, we will be sharing with you the results of the listening session series that we completed and the results of the community engagement survey and our community engagement guidelines. So those two initial components, they will inform the final document that we will be presenting to city leadership and later on to city councils. That's a document that tells staff how we should engage the community. We are also anticipating some updates to our belonging training program. I said earlier, we have this training program that has been in place for 4 years now, almost 5 years, and has been great for every city staff to participate and learn. People get surprised when we go to the history module because they have no idea of the things that happen here. So that's eye-opening. Usually the history piece is the one that gets mentioned the most when people prepare their evaluations because it's surprising to many people. Commissioners are invited to participate. We have 4 or 5 new commissioners joining us. So we'll be sending you invitations if you'd like to come and see that training and that conversation.
It's really good. I took it as a city employee. It's really
And
good.
this will be good for the commission to see the content and also provide input as we update, because now with the new context and the new realities, a lot of things will change. So we will have to make those be reflected in our training materials as well. And that's mostly it for now. Thank you.
I really appreciate that history about we see starting as a volunteer group and then changing to a group with staff support. That helps me to think about the group. And perhaps we can talk next week about temporarily being a group that supports cultural events that the city is part of. So thank you.
Great. And I would say, part of our recruitment mechanism,
Mhm.
inviting people to engage in in-person events that we are holding, such as that panel we discussed in June. When you realize it's more than a Zoom meeting and that you have, the ability to directly liaison with staff and different folks in the community in those dialogues, and it could be a really positive point of engagement that sustains investment in the space. So I'm excited to hear the outcome of that. And thanks for your report.
Sorry, I just want one reminder. We also have an exhibit on the history of Black communities in Eugene that can be borrowed to be placed in different events. So you may have seen them at the atrium, here at City Hall, at the farmers market in multiple events. They will be used again for the Juneteenth festival. But if you or organization, someone you know is organizing an event and would like to have those displays available, you can borrow them from us.
Oh yeah, I've seen those displays. They are really good displays. What I would like to see is those displays permanently displayed in City Hall. That would be nice, rather than just having rent a history display stands. Although they are very informative and I appreciate them. It would be good if City Hall had them permanently displayed as you walked in. That would be nice. But I'm glad we have rent a history for the Black community. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, so I think for that, thinking about different displays and material culture artifacts, we could think about places in our community that we would want them to be placed. And it could be part of our outreach and engagement strategy. With not just the public, but city staff, who we might want to increase awareness of certain histories. So I think there's, and that's something I think falls well within the scope of some of. What is on WCU's work plan.
Absolutely.
So we might think about that as engagement and outreach and something like that recommendation Commissioner Booker had.
Yeah,
So I'm gonna pass that ball to you, Commissioner Poindexter. Because I know that we're at time.
Yes.
And, I wanna make sure that we stay true to it. So. Do we have any public comment?
No one signed up.
Okay, so, a lot of topics, a lot of heavy topics and a lot of things going on in the world. Know that you're connected to people on this commission and the community that want to talk about it. And that's your role. So I appreciate y'all holding space for the diversity of topics that we discussed, and my to-do list is like 8 things long right now, so. Some of you will be getting emails from me very shortly, and, sounds like I have a lot of coffee dates, which I'm excited for. So I appreciate you all. Thanks for the work you do in the community and holding the dialogue this evening. So, okay, that concludes our meeting.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in, Thomas. Good to see you.